So, hi Mr. Nishimura. This is, essay number 2 where I will be talking about cartoons and what they say about culture. So before I start talking about the episodes, which I know I should be talking about them right now, but I actually did watch the newer generation of cartoons that are on TV right now. And it does say a lot about pop culture. That right now, what's more popular with the kids is just idiotic humor. Like, that's what I found out, when I was watching cartoons the other day. That all I learned from the cartoons was just, humor. Just jokes, And that's just saying a lot that, now that what's more popular with kids is just for them to be laughing. That cartoons now are just supposed to be silly. And that if you really want to learn about culture, if you want to learn something in cartoons, you're just gonna have to go watch, Nickelodeon Junior or Disney Channel when it's, for kids, for kids, for baby kids, or if you're gonna have to watch PBS Kids, in order to learn about culture or learn something from cartoons. Normally speaking, you're not supposed to learn anything from cartoons because sometimes you're just there to, watch cartoons. But I did learn, some stuff from cartoons before. They had morals and values in cartoons before. Nowadays, they don't really have that. They just want to make jokes and make fun. That's all cartoons are nowadays. I don't know why. There's some good cartoons out there, but not a lot. Before there was a lot of cartoons that actually were really good, like, Rugrats, Rocket Power, all these other good cartoons, but nowadays it's not that. It's not popular to, have a good storyline because, I guess kids find that boring now. But also, yes, I'm going to talk about Batman the Animated Series, but I'm going to, you can say I'm stalling, but I also want to talk about Batman in general because, like you said, Nishimura, Batman is a symbol. And Batman is a symbol. He is a symbol in pop culture. He's out there in the world. He's a big comic book superhero. And he's a symbol of darkness. He's a symbol of justice. And he's a symbol of, also, a guy insane who dresses up as a bat and tries to fight crime, that he can be a symbol of that too. Which a lot of people do say, that, he's a bit nuts and crazy. But yeah, Batman is a big symbol, and he plays a big part in, sort of nerdy and geeky pop culture, for nerds like, I guess you can say, like me. But yeah, like I said, I am going to talk about some episodes from the animated series. So I want to start talking about the episode called Harley and Ivy. In this episode, we are, seeing that, how Harley and Poison Ivy's relationship as friends, started out. That in the episode, the Joker kicks Harley Quinn out of the gang because he says, women are useless, you can't do anything right. And in the end, it wasn't really Harley Quinn's fault. It was actually the Joker's fault, that he was the one who was screwing up. But I'll get into that later on. So, Harley and Poison Ivy becomes friends, and they, commit crimes together, and they're doing a pretty good job at it. Doing way better than the Joker. And the Joker can't even manage his own gang or even find his own socks without Harley Quinn. And that's saying, something there. And in the end of the episode, of course, Batman stops Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, and including the Joker. But by the end of the episode, the Joker states the fact that, when I create a new gang, I'm not going to have women in my gang. Women are useless, And in this episode, it does talk a lot about, sexism in the world and in culture. That, yes, in culture, mostly in Asian culture, that women are less preferred than men. That men have more power over women. That, in Asian culture, more Asians want men in, the family to, generally speaking, pass on the bloodline. And, sort of, you can say that's sexist, in this episode, the Joker said that, Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy couldn't, do better than him, that, but it shows that, he couldn't even live without Harley Quinn. He couldn't do anything without her. And also, Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy almost stopped the Batman by, tying him up with, actually, which is really good and interesting that I found out, was that they tied Batman up with, kitchen appliances, vacuums, and whatnot, and, they told Batman, how do you feel like to be chained up and, strapped down by, the things women use to clean houses and whatnot? And saying that, women can actually have power, And I really liked this episode, and I found it interesting that they really strongly put that message out about sexism, and that's really out there in culture, that they do have sexists out there. They have people who really think they're better than women, and it's just wrong. And yeah, next up is the episode called Fire from Olympus. Now there's this man called Maxius Zeus, and he runs a shipping company, a very popular shipping company. But what happens is that his beliefs in Greek mythology has taken over him, and this really changes culture from regular human culture to this god-like belief, that he believes himself as a god. And that's what basically mostly happens in the episode, is that he tries to eradicate, the human beings from Gotham City, because he himself thinks he is Zeus, and he thinks mortals are weak, and he tries to push his beliefs onto, everybody around him, his wife, Batman included. He even calls Batman Hades. And, that says a lot about culture itself, that, in culture, there are people who actually believe in God and believe in, other mythologies and other gods and goddesses and whatnot. And, that does happen because, we have people who actually try to push these beliefs onto other people. Like, when I was at Fanime, we had these protesters. We had protesters standing outside Fanime, and, these people were, people who believed in God, people who believed in, Jesus. They were Christians or, whatnot. And they try to push their beliefs onto us by, trying to force us to make us feel bad by saying like, oh, you're putting on these costumes and this isn't the real you. Stop hiding yourself. And, in the episode, The Fire from Olympus, it just says a lot about, how, your own beliefs can actually overcome you and makes you actually believe in, a lot of things that possibly can't be real, because we also have, scientific beliefs too and whatnot that try to prove that, God isn't real, that the world was actually created from, monkeys, or, we originated from monkeys, God didn't create us and whatnot. It just proves the fact that, in culture, we have our own beliefs. We believe in different, this is why I don't do essays, but, this is why, people have their own beliefs, but, it gets to a point where, your beliefs overcomes you, and it sort of, creates a cult and stuff like that. Next up, I want to talk about an episode called Birds of Feather. Now, in the Birds of Feather episode, which is a really good episode, the Penguin is released from prison. Now, the Penguin is the more sophisticated villain of the Batman universe. He is more high class, or he tries to act morally high class. But in the episode, he's released from prison, and he wants to become a better person. He wants to change his ways, and become, a person in high society, And what happens is, I don't remember the lady's name, but, this lady, she, wants to become popular. So she thinks that, she goes out with, the Penguin, she will become popular and people will go to her parties and whatnot. And this was just technically a joke, and she is already part of the high class. But it was just a joke to go out with the Penguin. In the end of the episode, the lady starts to, have feelings, not like strong feelings toward the Penguin, but, she, generally speaking, starts to grow fond of the Penguin, and she actually tells him that by the end of the episode. And after, the Penguin found out that, it was all a joke, he reverts back to being a villain. But, in the end, she tells the Penguin, if we were in another life, or if, things were different, we could have been friends. And I really liked how the Penguin responded. He said, then society is to blame. Highly society is to blame. And, this says a lot about, society in general. That there are people who are really effed up in the world, that, they would just, because, they want to be, because they think they're so, high class that they can do whatever they want, and they just make jokes, of people. And this also states the fact that, if Penguin and that lady wasn't, in this kind of situation, if they were different people, if they weren't in a high society or a low society, then things would be different. And that says a lot in culture too. Culture wise, we have high class people, middle class people, and low class people. And mostly, generally speaking, the high class people judge the middle class and lower class. But what's really different from everybody else, that they have money, we don't, and money is everything, and that's what they're trying to say in the episode, that that money can corrupt people. It can turn you evil and whatnot. But yeah, and also saying that villains can change. Not everybody's evil. That if they were evil, they can have the heart to change. But next up, I want to talk about the episode called Two-Face. It's a two-part episode where they talk about the origin stories of how Harvey Dent became Two-Face. Now, speaking, cultural wise, it's, Two-Face is a symbol. Now, in the episode, we see Harvey Dent, he's fighting his own demons. He has an alter ego called Big Bad Harv. He had like a really troubled childhood, and that created that alter ego. And, there was an explosion, and basically, his body was half deformed, and that's what created, Big Bad Harv to come out, and that's what created him to be Two-Face. And mostly the episode just talks about his origin stories. Now, I want to talk about, Two-Face as he's a symbol of good and evil, because, half his side is Harvey Dent, half his side is Two-Face. Now, sometimes, generally speaking, Harvey Dent or Two-Face does, speak in a normal voice. He doesn't always speak in his grumbly Two-Face voice, because, part of him is still good. He's still, Harvey Dent, because he flips a coin, and the coin is a symbol, too, to Two-Face. It's a coin of, whether or not it's good or evil. Whether or not he should, make the choice of being good, or, making a choice of being evil. And that's the coin. That's the symbol of the coin itself for Two-Face. And I generally speaking, I really like Two-Face. His character really is great, because it does show a lot of symbolism as a character himself. Because he does do a lot of things to prove that he is sort of good, but at the same time can still sort of prove that he's evil. But yeah, that's all I want to talk about Nishimura. That's all the episodes that I found that really stood out to me cultural-wise, and hopefully, it did at least talk about culture, that I didn't actually misinterpret anything. I probably did, but that's what, I just interpreted myself from watching these episodes from Batman the Animated Series. There were other episodes, I watched a lot of them because, you told me to watch an hour or two, but I watched more than just an hour or two because I really was trying to find a good episode to actually talk about. And these four sort of stood out to me better than the other episodes. And yeah, just hopefully you enjoy this essay video. And yeah, I'm not expecting a good grade because I really don't expect it, but still, just hopefully you enjoy this video, by itself. But yes, yeah, so I'll see you later, Nishimura. See you in class tomorrow, and see you later.